Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Hill, your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I am here for another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted. Today, I have a very special guest, Caroleena Fonseca Jiminez, and I'm going to read her bio before before we dive into the conversation. And everybody that views my podcast know that I always read the bio so I get it right. Caroleena Fonseca Jiminez is a public engagement and relationship building expert. She develops strategic outreach and engagement plans that have diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at the forefront. Caroleena's goal is to make meaningful connections to help organizations and businesses while also promoting internal support and training to make organizations more accessible and inclusive to your clients and employees. Caroleena is passionate about working with others who value their role and purpose within their agency. So welcome, Caroleena. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you, Michelle. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm excited for our conversation. It's always nice to see you.
Yeah, same here. Caroleena and I originally met through the Carolina Book and Writer Conference. I think for the past few years, I've been moderator for 4 years, and I think Caroleena you have been part of a panel or involved in some way for just as many years, right?
Absolutely, yes. And it's really been a pleasure because, I got to meet you. I got to meet a lot of other really interesting people, and it's been such a supportive group. So I'm just very thankful for that opportunity as well.
Yeah, me too. I love that group, and I always look forward to the next year and how it grows, how it improves, and all that. So tell viewers a little bit about your background so they have an understanding where you come from.
Absolutely. So I'll give you a quick recap. So I'm originally from León, Guanajuato, Mexico. I was born there. And at the age of 2 years old, my parents decided, let's follow the American dream and leave the country. So that was a bit, was a bit scary, quite frankly. I just have little bits and pieces of that memory, probably because it was kind of a traumatic experience. But we came to the US whenever I was 2 years old, and I grew up in the public school system ever since. For 28 years, I was what's called undocumented. And then I went through the immigration process. I was able to get DACA, so I'm a DACA recipient. And then I was able to get my residency. And I've been a citizen for like 3 years now. So that's just really exciting.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. That is quite a process, and it's not a cheap process either, from what I've heard.
That's right. It is not. And, I'm very thankful that as soon as I knew, whenever I was even in middle school, I would think, okay, you have to do everything perfect. You can't get in trouble, because I was always thinking ahead. I'm like, there will be an opportunity to get my citizenship. And my brothers thought it was so funny. They're like, Caroleena, you're such a nerd. You're always doing everything you're supposed to. And I'm like, you laugh, but I will have my citizenship before you know it. And so it just really motivated me to do what was best for me and continue my education. So then I went to East Carolina University. I got my bachelor's in psychology there, my minor in women's studies, and I started getting really active with the community. And I realized that, if I wanted to see a change in the community, a more loving community, I would have to be a part of it and actively be there. So I started volunteering in different organizations, different campaigns, and that actually led me to working at the senator's office. One of our senators here in North Carolina, I interned with him for a few years. Wow. And then he actually helped me work where I am now with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And through this growth on the side, I was trying to connect with my roots, connect with that Mexican culture that, quite frankly, we were uprooted from. So, my whole life has been keep on going with your education, but also remember who you are. And I've done that through my little children's books, Lupita and the Magic of Mexico, and my second one as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad. And we're going to talk about those children's books because I'm so excited about them. And they're just wonderfully illustrated and just captivating. So before we get into that, talk about a little bit about how you came to develop strategic outreach and engagement plans that are connection based, because I know you're all about connection.
I am, and it's so important when we talk about connection, we're really talking about making meaningful relationships with people and sustaining them. So, it really started when I was volunteering at the organizations and campaigns because, with a campaign, you have to let people know about the cause, about the individual running on that campaign. So I had to organize as a volunteer. I had to very quickly learn, okay, the way that I can organize and connect with people is not to just say, hey, vote for this person. I had to get to know the person and see what their likes were, what their dislikes were. Can we connect, right? Having those meaningful kinds of conversations. And I learned that the more that I did that, even though it took longer than other people, what they were doing, I realized that mine was long-standing because as I moved from campaign to campaign, I had already built those strong relationships to help me with the next one. So I started just putting it all together. I said, you know what, I think I'm on to something here, and they could see that. And that's why I was getting hired at different organizations and campaigns to help them do this. And, one of the things that has really helped me too is maintaining both English and Spanish language, because that way, I can be the interpreter and the facilitator between two groups of people that maybe have a common interest but don't know it. So I'm that mediator, and it's funny that I say that because I'll tell you something. In third grade, I was actually a mediator at school. We were volunteers and we had a little clipboard. And if we saw a problem out on the playground, we would help mediate. We would bring resolution. So it's funny that continued throughout my aging process, and it helped me tremendously when I'm building these strategic plans. It's about coming to a consensus and uniting communities, which is everything that I'm about.
Yeah, absolutely. That is woven into who you are and all the endeavors that you are a part of. It's all about building connections, building strong connections, and being that mediator in between. And I know coming from Southern California, you pretty much, being bilingual was almost a necessity, and all the Spanish I learned was from 3 semesters in high school. And I only know how to order chocolate after all that.
It's tough. You got to keep it up. Absolutely.
Yeah, I learned the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, that is very needed. Very needed.
Very needed. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to turn a corner because I want to kind of rest here for a few moments. You have a book called Your Dream Guide, and you help people interpret and understand the significance of their dreams. So how did you get into this dreamy area?
Oh my God. You know what? I was talking about this yesterday during one of my lives, and it's very funny because um I knew that dreams were important to me. Whenever I was a very little girl, I would have very vivid dreams and they were magical, but just as vivid as they were, I would have very vivid nightmares. And I didn't know what to do with them. So I would tell my parents, I'm like, oh, I'm really scared. And my dad was the only one who could kind of get what I was saying. Mom would say, just ignore it. It's just a dream. But dad, he was able to tell me that it was really something that was going on within me, that there was something I was afraid of. And so it comes up in a nightmare because I'm not dealing with it. So he was the one that really helped me understand that piece. And I've used my dream since I was little to guide me. So, for example, if I have a really good dream, I know that, okay, I'm doing well, everything's good. But once I have a nightmare or a dream that's uncomfortable, I know that that's just a loving alert saying, hey, there's something going on in waking state that maybe you haven't brought enough love to. You're avoiding something, right? So I use them in that way, but I never talked about them. And, my immigration story plays a big role in this because the only reason that I talk about it now was because I was actually in Mexico. I had to leave the country to see if I qualified to come back in and, essentially get my residency and citizenship. So I was really afraid to leave the country, but I had a dream. And in the dream, it was that everything was going to be okay, but my case was going to be extended. But in the dream, the universe was like, chill, it's going to be fine. And I knew I had the dream, but my waking self was doubting it. And as I was in Mexico with my husband in the hotel, I remember that I was just so afraid of not being able to come back home. And whenever I was in line, talking to the officer on the other end, they're asking you questions and seeing if you qualify to come back in the country. I promised the universe, I said, universe, if you help me go back to see my family, it's a very emotional time. But I said, if you allow me to do that, I won't ignore my dreams, and I'll share it with other people because I knew I had to, but I didn't want to because I thought people are going to think I'm weird. Of course not. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But when I realized that I was coming back to the country, I absolutely had to, Michelle. And you'll notice I have some YouTube videos where I'm beginning to speak of them and I'm so nervous and it's horrible. But it's because of that that I talk about them because they've helped me so deeply, so tremendously that I know it will help other people, especially kids, whenever they're struggling with nightmares. I want them to understand that they can do something about it and that it's just a loving alert from the self, inviting them to grow in a certain aspect, essentially.
Wow, that is so interesting because I think people, I know whenever I have a dream, I'm on, I Google it if it's really, really vivid, especially if it's violent.
Oh
And I
yeah.
have a lot of violent dreams, and I've had nightmares since I was like 4 years old. And so I really appreciate what you're saying about something is not being dealt with or something on the outside, because I have struggled with that all my life. But when they're vivid like that, I'll go to Google and I'll Google dream about this thing. And you get all kinds of different interpretations. So how do you interpret, how do you manage like all the myriad of different interpretations in your book?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for me, it's a very simple answer because look, when I was growing up, my mom at one point gave me a dream dictionary. It was like my gift. And she didn't know that I was still really into dreams, but the universe kind of helped her give it to me. So I started doing that. I would write my dreams down and then I would use this dream dictionary. But then I started realizing, I said, look, some of the things this person says means something. To me, it means something different. I could feel it within me. And so I learned from this dream dictionary that we all have a different dream language. And the dream language is based on you, it's based on your history, it's based on your culture, it's based on your family. So one symbol may mean something different for other people. So in my book, really what it is, it's a guide to understanding your dreams. So I have different practices and different exercises that people can do so that way they can understand what certain symbols mean to them, but also understand that the dream really is upheld by the emotions, right? So if you're having dreams of feeling attacked, feeling like there's some violence going on, if there's that much amount of fear, then it's letting us know that right now we're operating our life in that way. There's certain situations in life that we still view with a lot of fear. And that dream is actually a really good dream because it's inviting us to work on something, right? So I always encourage people whenever they have any dream, don't look it up on Google because I'll tell you something.
Yes.
Um, some dream interpreters, when we just say the word dream interpreters, some of them they operate out of fear, and so their interpretation will be one of fear. They'll say, "You dreamt this. That means that this bad stuff could happen," and that could be right for them because they're operating out of that energy. But
Good.
I'm a big believer that we have to move to loving energy, peaceful energy before you interpret any dream, especially a nightmare. Because if you don't, all you do is grow more fear within yourself, and that creates a disconnect between you and your dreams. So the book that I've created is really just a guide, and it comes out of work that I've done with our dream circles, with our dream team members. So it comes out of that experience and from hearing stories and my own research with our community that I realized we all have a different dream language. And once you can understand your language, then you're going to understand every single dream. And not just that, Michelle, but then the next part is what am I going to do in waking state to proactively move myself forward? That part right there, that's the magical part. I love that.
Yeah. And that, excuse me, that kind of brings up a question. There's some dreams that people on an average have: the chasing dream, the being trapped, the going backwards, without in a car without any brakes, that kind of thing. Do you address that in your book? Because there seems to be universal dreams that most people experience.
Yeah, I talk a little bit about that. I give examples. So, for example, we talk about dreams of the past, past with childhood and then past lives if people are open to that. We talk about dreams of present and present worries, and I give different examples. And yes, the chasing one is one that happens to a lot of people, but again, it's different. So, for example, if there's a lot of fear as you're trying to outrun something, oftentimes when you reflect it to waking state, you realize for one person it may be, I'm trying to outrun a situation at work because I feel like I don't have a handle on it, so I'm trying to outrun it. But for someone else, it could be that pressure that they're putting on themselves. And it's like in the dream, I'm trying to outrun this because I feel that pressure I am putting on myself. So a dream of being chased will have similar feelings for people, but it will be associated with a different situation in waking state depending on their experience. And really, my goal is to do that with this book for people to look at their dream, to feel what it means, because eventually with the practice of feeling what the dream means and writing it down, and then also remembering like, this is what it meant to me during this time and connecting it. This is what I saw in waking state after I had this dream. When you connect these two worlds together, it creates this unity within the self. So the next time you have a dream, you're going to feel the meaning. And then more importantly, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I know I have to do this in waking now, and I better get to it. That's the exciting part.
Okay, so just to confirm, that is so great, you know, how you do it. I don't have your book, but I want to buy it now.
Oh, good.
Yes, because I think that they do, you know, work out. So when do you think that the things that you talk about, like there's things we can do in our waking hours can that affect our dreams? Like if we're being warned about a relationship that we're going to enter into, and I've had this happen. I had a repeated dream about a car with no brakes going backwards down a hill. As soon as that was done and over, the dream never came back. So do our dreams, can we do things in our waking hours that prevent that, or are those dreams meant to protect us?
Do you mean that, okay, so in the dream you were going backwards like that, and you're saying that in waking state you connected it with a relationship that was ending? Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a potential relationship, but it was almost like warning flags of when it was going to come, you know, somebody was moving from another state to come to North Carolina, and I kept having these dreams, and then when it dissipated, the dream stopped. So those dreams were kind of warning flags to say something is not right here.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's the cool thing about them because they will prepare you. Oftentimes they're those loving alerts and they're like, this is a potential, but you hit on a really important point because now that you've connected it to that situation, let's say you have another dream like that in the future. Now that you have that knowledge, you can say, okay, what can I practically do about this in waking state? Right. And that's where the power comes in because maybe it's having a conversation with somebody. Maybe there was some hesitation in that person even moving here, and maybe you needed to have a little deeper dive to that conversation, and that's okay. But yes, I think that's where we want to get to. We want to get to the point where we realize that both worlds really reflect themselves through the self. So if I do something in waking state that increases my love, increases the unity with myself, whether that's through exercise, meditation, doing things that we enjoy, right? Whatever that is, it will reflect in dream state. It will reflect. So it's a beautiful check-in for the self. And then just like that, it can be used reverse, right? Like those loving alerts and dream state. Okay, let me prepare myself now for waking. So it's just this beautiful circle. But if you don't get a handle on it, it's like, oh my gosh, it's out of control. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And before we go on to your children's books, I want to ask you, because I think this is a common thing that people wonder, and you can Google it again. And we just believe everything we read on Google, and it's just not true. But do certain foods affect our dreams? Does eating late affect our dreams? What do you think about that?
So I have learned from the various dreamers that I've spoken to over the years that it really depends on the person. So for example, for me, I can eat anything. I look, sometimes I'm a big snacker at night, but my dreams are still, they're fine. But I have other dream team members who are like, Caroleena, I cannot do that because if I do, I will have nightmares. Like I will have uncomfortable dreams. Is that you?
Yes, that's me. I can't eat late at night at all because I will nightmare.
Yes, and it's different for different people, but oftentimes it happens because your body's still processing everything. You're trying to relax, trying to sleep, but the body is still working. So there's like this disconnect of not being at peace. So it can affect people like you. And then there are those other dreamers like me that I just eat whatever and I'm knocked out because I'm so sleepy. But it does depend on you, as an individual. And then I'll also say this, not just the food that you're eating, but the things you're watching, right? Oftentimes we are on our phones, and whether we're looking at the news and it's fearful news, we're watching a movie that's a little scary. If you do those kinds of things, it is very likely that you'll have a more scary experience in dream state because that's the last thing you're looking at. So I really recommend a bedtime routine for yourself. Yes. And I'm not just talking about the traditional brushing the teeth. I'm talking about a moment of peace. Maybe drink some tea that is good for you. Chamomile is great. Viridiana is great. Those kinds of teas that help relax you. So yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to make sure to mention, to be conscious of the things we're doing before going to bed at night.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, anybody that knows me knows that my nightly routine consists of Little House on the Prairie and the Waltons. So I'm putting good stuff into my brain. And if I kind of am drifting, I'm drifting to good stuff, good family values and ethics and all that. So, and I don't like scary movies, but I know that a pastor one time told the single people in the church, like, don't fall asleep to your TV with your TV on, because all those subconscious messages, whatever they are, commercials or programs or movie trailers, are going into your brain. And, I haven't had a TV in my bedroom for decades, but I know that's a thing. What you fall asleep to can affect that as well.
Absolutely. And the pastor was spot on, because you're absolutely right. If you're going to sleep and there's all of this, chatter going on, depending on what it's about, it can get into dream world. And you don't want that. That's why so many people, if you notice on YouTube, they'll say, these are affirmations you can listen to while you sleep. I personally don't do that because, if you're sleeping, you don't know what they're saying in the middle of them. I'm sorry, but I'm just like, I connect with mind, body, soul, and I'm good like that.
Yes, I feel the same way. And plus, it keeps me awake, because if you have a 3-hour, I've tried those biblical meditation things, and I'm just like, I want to stay up and listen to the whole thing. So
right, me too.
That doesn't work for me. So let's turn another corner and talk about your children's books. And you have, like you mentioned before, Lupita and the Magic of Mexico. And you also have Lupita and Her Magical Dreams. So talk about those books. Yes, hold them up.
I showed one when you said this one, and then I showed the other when you said this one.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
And so talk about how you came about to write 2 children's books. And I think aren't you working on a 3rd now?
Yes. Well, and the ideas just come to me. I never thought I was going to be a writer. Like, I really never did. But it's like, once you open that, there's no stopping it. You're like constantly. So the first time quite honestly, I'm very transparent about this. I was going through a really tough time in law school, actually. I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I wasn't there. Like, it wasn't what I really wanted. But my dad said he always wanted a lawyer in the family. So I said, all right, I'm going to give it all I have for you, Dad. But it wasn't something I wanted to do. But anyway, I wasn't facing it. So I was having a very tough day. And I remember sitting at the computer and I'm like, I'm just going to do the old school thing, surf the web, see what I get on. And I remember having this phrase in my mind. It said, Lupita and the Magic of Mexico. And I was like, wow, that's really pretty. So I type it into like Word document. And I just left it there for a while, but I thought it was beautiful. And I didn't think anything of it. A couple of weeks go by later. I'm in the same kind of rut, not feeling good. And I'm like, I'm just going to go on my Word doc and just see, because I really like that phrase. And Michelle, I kid you not, that day, my whole little book presented itself. I just felt what to write. I felt what to write. And it was really cool because I was like, oh my gosh, this is a book. I'm like, this is a book. So it was just a really cool experience. It's never happened to me before. And I think what it was like, I didn't think of it then, but now, a part of me thinks it was my grandfather who had passed away, and it's just very cute because, he passed away. And in my culture, we believe that their energy continues on a different place, but their energy continues and their guidance is still available to us. So I think he helped me, at least inspired the idea. So that's where that book came from. And then once I started reading the book, Lupita and the Magic of Mexico, to schools in North Carolina, they were interested in it because of the culture, because of the family unity that it really promoted. And I also do artwork with these books. So they were very interested in it. But then as we were discussing the book with children, they were telling me about certain nightmares that they had, because in the book, there's a part about Day of the Dead. And they said that the sugar skulls scared them a little bit, this right here. And they're like, oh, that scares me. I don't want to have a nightmare. And I was like, oh, I'm like, well, it's not scary. And I explained it to them, and the book explains it too. But it opened up a door to talk about nightmares, and kids started sharing their nightmares. And I said, whoa, universe, I get it. I get it. So I wrote this book, Lupita and Her Magical Dreams, because I wanted kids to understand that nightmares are nothing to be afraid of. It's a way really to understand the self. And I use my example of my dad providing me guidance with the Lupita books. And so now that's part of the book that we share also. So that way kids and parents understand that it's nothing to be afraid of, but it's really something to empower us and really can bring the family closer together when they understand their dreams as a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the third book that you're working on, can you give us a little sneak preview of what it's about, what the theme of the book is?
Yes, I can. I was actually, well, with all of this, these books that I'm doing on Saturdays, every single Saturday, my 6 nieces and my 1 nephew, they come over and they volunteer. We do content for the books and we share them on social media. And we have been out in nature a lot. And one of them said to me, Tia, because they call me Tia as aunt, and they're like, Tia, I think we need to do something about nature. And I'm like, do you think so? And they're like, you're always out in nature, Thea, and Lupita needs to reconnect with nature. And I said, oh my goodness, kids. I'm like, you're right. So I'm going to work on one with the kids, written by kids with me, for kids. And it's going to be about Lupita connecting with the magic of Mother Nature. So I don't know what the story is going to be yet, but I know it's along those lines because I feel that.
Okay, that is awesome. And 3 children's books. I know, as an author of 2, co-author with my cousin of 2 children's books. The second one isn't out yet. It's not for the faint-hearted. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and the mechanics of it and the illustration. So what have you learned? And this is my final question. What have you learned about yourself through, if I can combine them, your dream guide and writing the children's books, being a writer?
Yeah, I've learned so much. I've learned so much about myself, really, and it's mostly that I think we're at the happiest when we're doing those things we genuinely enjoy, right? And I was kind of nervous to do a children's book because I said, oh no, people aren't going to take me seriously as a writer. What am I going to do? But then I booted that idea out very quickly. Once I started seeing the children's response and I started seeing the parents' response, I said, you know what? I think we're onto something, and I think it is helping people. So I've learned to trust that inner guidance, that inner intuition more, right? So I've learned to really trust my dreams, but then also trust myself during waking state. Whenever I feel a certain something saying do it or saying, whoa, pause right there, I look at it with loving eyes and I really trust myself with it. And that's something I didn't do before. I was very hesitant before. So it's really increased my confidence in that way. And now I'm just kind of encouraged to go off script, write something completely different. And I have, look, Michelle, sometimes I wake up, I have woken up with poems, beautiful poems. I have written those down. And so that's another piece. I have so many ideas, so many things that I have. It's just a matter of the time and energy to publish them. So that's where I'm at.
Yes. And it does take time for the production, and a lot of times people don't realize all the moving parts post writing that are involved.
Oh yeah. It's a whole strategy. Like we talked about earlier, the strategies I do for work, it's the same strategies I do with the Lupita book. It's the prep time, right? It's the writing time. It's the connecting with the right person to do your illustration. And again, I use the same person. So I've maintained that strong relationship. And when we're doing outreach, I do the same thing. I go to my people that already know this is what we do. Let's get the word out there. And if I'm able to share some good news of an upcoming event, I'd like to be able to do that if that's okay.
Yes, please do share what you need to share. Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay, so I'm really happy to share that our book, Lupita and Her Magical Dreams, it is offered at a local store in Raleigh, Dancing Moon, and I'm going to have an event there actually December 10th, and I've listed it on my website. It's on Eventbrite, and it's going to be a really interesting activity. We're going to read the book to the kids, but on the big screen. It's going to be very fun. And then we're going to have arts and crafts with the kids and talk about our dreams. So it's going to be a really beautiful, beautiful event.
That is wonderful. And tell people when that is, December 10th, and what time.
Yes, it is December 10th from 1 to 3, and the space is limited. It's a free event, but it is limited because it's at the bookstore. So we are asking people to register on Eventbrite. And if you'd like, you can just go to my website and you go to upcoming events and it'll be listed right there.
Okay, and that brings me up to my final question, which is, how can people connect with you? How can they find you and find these great events and your books and find out more about you?
Thank you. The easiest place is my website, which is www.lupitainspires.com. And you'll notice on there that I have all my other socials because I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I do all of them because they're fun, and we've created a beautiful Dream Team community. So I would just suggest go to my website and follow whatever it is that you're comfortable with.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate you just graciously answering all my questions and inspiring. I think people will want to buy not only the children's books, but your dream guide, because people are always seeking to, what does that mean? What does that mean? So I really appreciate you being a guest today on the podcast.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been an honor for me to connect with you, and I'm looking forward to continuing our relationship as well. You're amazing, and the work that you do for the Carolina Book Writers Conference, for this, I thank you for your work and for this space.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that means a lot coming from you too, because I really admire you and your work for sure. And I just want to end with Winning Proof. Like I said at the beginning, I'm your legacy builder at Winning Proof, and I am a book and publishing consultant. So I help put all the pieces together. And I just want to admonish people, tell your story, change a life. And you can find me on all the social media under Winning Proof, on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And those are the 4. I am not going on TikTok. It's just not for me, but you can find me on all those. And I really want to ask people, this is a shameless request, please subscribe and share. I need subscribers, and I would like to get on some of the bigger podcast platforms and just share this if it was helpful for you. So until next time, thank you for watching another episode of Winning Proof Unscripted.